Alrighty. Welcome, everyone, to episode number 46 of UnCommon Conversations. Today's guest is none other than Trevor Brown. He is the
Oh,
uh, founder, Mac Daddy, Sugar Daddy Pimp, if you will, of the Acropolis News Network. A very, very interesting and I think needed addition to the political space. And we've been on a few podcasts so far. We've had a lot of great conversations. We'll get a little bit more into some of those in a bit. But for now, I just wanted to introduce him to you guys. So we're going to start off with Trevor. Where did you grow up? Who are you in terms of high school and sort of, as a guy? Where are you from? Who
okay.
are you? No.
I've grown up in Southern California, the sort of high desert area, San Bernardino County. I guess throughout I'm in college now, but all throughout high school, I was sort of the guy who could not leave well enough alone. You know, like I always had to, I was always finding something wrong with something that my teachers would say. And to be fair, my teachers were insane, completely insane. But like it's fun. It's fine, I guess. I've gotten over it. Like I'm not bitter about it or anything, but I have some fond memories. I guess you could say, and some not so fond memories. And yeah, and so I'm here. I like it here. I'm about an hour away from wherever from like having fun in places I don't like to have fun at. So it's kind of cool, I guess.
Nice. Do you like any sports? Are you much of a sports person?
No,
All
not
right.
really.
All right. Right on.
I
Um, are you into any particular types of art forms, or are you into any type of art?
yeah. One I guess what is it? I don't want to say uh I don't want to say musician, but I play a few instruments. I play the guitar and the bass, and I can play the guitar in a bunch of different styles. And I sort of have a hybrid style of all those styles where it's sort of like it's like a quarter flamenco, um I think it's called like neo harmonic percussionary, and just sort of like the standard way people play the standard way I guess Americans play the guitar, and to sort of put it all together into one thing because I ended up practicing it at so many so many different stuff. So that's kind of with that. And if you play the
Were you in
guitar, you can.
band?
I tried to set up a band in high school. It didn't work because I was the only one who was interested in good music, and I was the only one, trying to like participate in making things, and like trying to make, like I was the only one coming up with riffs and all this stuff. And then during like 2020 and 2021, me and another friend, sorry, 2019 and 2020, this is a different time to try to set up the band, but it was sort of like it was just like a two guy thing, you know. But he was supposed to be the lyric guy, and he wasn't really feeling it. And to be fair, he was super busy at the time, so like I don't I don't judge, but that didn't really work out. So I basically just play what I want to play. I'm working on an acoustic medley of the Attack on Titan soundtrack, like a few
Nice.
songs from it,
Nice.
because
Right
Attack
on.
on Titan's like basically my favorite show, like ever. It's so good.
It's very epic. I'm not caught up with it. I only think I
Mm,
went through season one before the rest came out, or season one and two. I don't remember, but
yeah.
I haven't caught up with the recent stuff yet. But yeah, fantastic show. If anyone likes a thriller and doesn't mind a little bit of blood and
Yeah.
some good
It
old
gets a lot
violence.
it
Um,
gets a lot better right around halfway through season two. It goes from an okay show you can kind of have in the background to one of the best shows of all time, like one of the best series of all time, right up there with like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, things like that. Like it's right up there. like
Have
the
you
you know.
watched Avatar: The Last Airbender or The Legend of Korra?
I remember when The Legend of Korra came out. I remember hating it because I didn't know why. I just was just kind of like, this is not Avatar,
Hmm.
you know. And I recognized it, and I didn't know quite what was wrong with it. But then I ended up rewatching it when I was older, and I'm like, oh, they took everything about Avatar that makes it a decent, well-rounded, respected show and turned it into something terrible. And I'm pretty sure the main character, the Avatar and Korra,
You're
like
gonna get roasted. You're gonna get roasted alive
I'm
on the
pretty sure
internet for
that's fine. I don't care what furries have to say, but like, but I remember like in season one, the main Avatar lady straight up commits sexual assault, where she kisses the brother of the guy that she was out on a date with, knowing full well that she was in a relationship, knowing full well that the guy didn't want to kiss him, and I'm just like, the Avatar is not supposed to be a rapist. She's, you know, not that's not.
it would be an understatement to say that's an exaggeration.
Yeah,
But now it's funny point though. No, I think you should revisit it. I'm a big fan of both of those series. Avatar: The Last Airbender is much more of the hero's journey within the context
mm,
of martial arts. The Legend of Korra is much more of a story of like humility and someone who's
yeah,
bullheaded, learning how to get more in touch with the softer side and the political superstructure and like the billionaire movie creator who's secretly behind this, that, and the other thing, and like it's obvious that he's like a bit of a trickster. It's not. I'm not giving anything away. But
yeah.
anyways, very reflective of reality. I Jordan Peterson taught me a new way to interpret. Basically, taught me literary interpretation. I never understood
Okay.
symbolically what you could do, but his book Maps of Meaning, and then his lecture series Maps of Meaning, and what he goes through Pinocchio and The
Mm,
Lion King and other things, shows you how to extract out and reflect on the similarities between the story structures and real
mm.
life, and it gives you a whole new way of deeply enjoying any type of literature or anything like that. It's really amazing. So um, I got to really experience these things in a different way. And the thing that anytime there's a rich guy in the background like manipulating things, I'm like, yeah, I like that, because it's I don't know, it's a thing that like is made fun of as a
Yeah.
conspiracy thing, you know, but
It
it's
doesn't. No,
also
here's the
dead
thing.
obvious.
Here's the thing. It doesn't reflect reality. The real reality is that it's a bunch of billionaires in some kind of some kind of global billionaire forum where they all make policy decisions for the entire planet.
Yeah,
You know, it's a conspiracy theory for
they
it
have
being
their.
one. The actual truth is that it's a bunch of them.
It's hilarious because yeah, the conventional wisdom is, oh, those are just conspiracy theories. No one ever works like that or organizes
Hmm.
like that. The reality is they have military-industrial complex conventions where they
Yep.
compare and contrast who has the latest, best type of rockets to purchase on the
Yeah.
international arms market. Like that's the reality. Is like they have conventions for this stuff.
Hmm.
Anywho, but yeah, I so you are when did you first get political? When did that start to turn from just sort of normal life into politics, and what was like the stuff you used to be into and then now it sort of switched into this political focus?
Well, for me, politics has always been something I knew I'm supposed to engage in. I'd watch the news with my grandparents, in part because it was the only thing to watch, and I wanted to hang out with them. You know, but like I've always been in the sort of political stuff, you know, kind of my entire life, and it's given me some bragging rights. I'm the only one in in my generation who paid attention to Occupy Wall Street.
Mm, mm-hmm,
I'm the
mm-hmm.
only one in Gen Z who paid attention to Occupy Wall Street. I watched it go from this decentralized thing where they don't know what they're really standing for, but they're trying to get to it eventually, and then I watched it devolve into a bunch of people screaming at each other about whether or not to have like segregated caucuses for the protests to vote on things and like segregated based on race and I'm just and I watched as like the sort of what I know now to be anarcho capitalist types coming in to like try to say, oh, you hate the banks? Well, there's this big bank over there that controls all the other banks. Would you like to come with us to that protest? And then that failed, which is cool because out of that failure we got Bitcoin, which is nice, basically. So that's a plus. The Federal Reserve still existing is not so much of a plus, but whatever. Little victories are always important. But in high school is where it really ramped up because I was basically the only one who paid attention to politics. Like there were other people who paid attention to politics, but it was sort of like they got into it the way people usually get into politics at that age, which is they're already interested in history, and people who are interested in history end up naturally getting into politics. Because it's just like it's history, but now.
It's
You know?
the relevant parts of history is
Yeah,
politics.
yeah, basically, and then so I remember like through like all the Trump stuff, it was just kind of it just kind of got to a point where it's like I was already like firmly on the Trump supporter side, like when Trump got elected, because I recognized then, I didn't know the term for it because I was in high school, but it was what I now know to be populism. And I went into the history of like populism or whatever, and I found like Gaius and Tiberius Gracchus. I'm not going to pronounce the Latin names in Latin because I'm speaking English and I'm not bilingual by any means. But so what happened with that is like basically what's going on with Trump. Though whether or not Trump is the father or the son in that scenario, like trying to reform Rome and take power away from the Senate, and just extrapolate it from take power away from what Trump supporters call the swamp, and just bring it back to the sort of regular people, bring the country back to a republic.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Instead of
We're in the midst
us.
of what I call, and it's just going to be a natural phenomenon of the cycles of history, and part of this weak men creating strong men, weak men creating hard times, creating strong men. Part of the cycle is the populist correction. So any institution in its initial creation is supposed to be serving the people with some sort of a vision. By definition, that institution will creep away from that initial vision, and then at some point they recognize it because it's no longer serving the people, and then there has to be a realignment, otherwise the institution will fail. And when institutions really begin to start failing, I mean, it's a rough business. So we definitely want to see these things be revived, or ideally evolved even into different things in terms of the decentralized crypto space. There's a lot of opportunities there to start.
And there's a lot of ways it can go really,
creating
really
competition
wrong
for the governments.
Yeah.
Say that again?
There's a lot of ways it can go really, really wrong. There are a few problems with crypto where, like, what gives, particularly Bitcoin logs every single transaction that is ever made.
Yeah.
And the only
and it's
reason
publicly available.
Mm-hmm. And the only reason the United States hasn't gone full Bitcoin, if you're a totalitarian, there's no reason what the Trump supporters call the swamp. There's no reason, in theory, for the swamp to not desire Bitcoin to be the main currency for the United States, but because like it's easily more controllable, like
Yeah.
1,000% more. But the thing is, you can't. But the thing is, if the United States abandons the U.S. dollar, the international reserve currency, well, then we can't print $40 billion to give weapons to another country, so that those weapons can get lost, and then a bunch of factions and groups can accidentally be in the area to be able to steal them and go blow up kids.
Yeah, we won't be able to do that anymore. I'm not concerned with Bitcoin becoming the reserve currency or anything close quite to that. It can't function as that in its current form.
Possible.
And also the upside to the traceability, so to speak, issue. One, there's lots of other alt and privacy coins and tokens that get around this and are working on getting around this. Ghost coin by the famous get away. Sorry, cats.
That's all right.
Ghost coin by the very well-renowned and now, unfortunately, suicided John McAfee, a guy worth definitely diving into if you haven't yet. Created Ghost coin and a bunch of other decentralized exchange and some other things that innovated in that space and really have been pivotal. Can't dive into that stuff deep enough, guys. Anywho. There's a lot of good things on the horizon there, but for now, we have to deal with the technology of government that we have before us. And there's a few different sort of camps. You already touched on anarcho-capitalism. And there is the two sort of families of anarchy, anarcho-communism and anarcho-capitalism. Frank, I have a question. Do you understand from a functional perspective? Do you understand anarcho-communism, like how it's supposed to actually look or work in real society?
I understand why people would use that term, because they're basically looking at the political compass that used to be very popular for people to take. I understand why people are like making that assumption and coming up with that term. But unfortunately, I've read enough socialist theory from a bunch of different strands of socialism to kind of understand that there cannot be an anarcho-socialism, and to be honest, I don't even think there's such I don't think there's such thing as anarchy. I don't think it's possible for human beings to create a society that's anarchy, because the Enlightenment philosophers would refer to anarchy as the state of nature. Particularly Hobbes described the state of nature as anarchy. But the problem is anarchy means without authority, and I think all the Enlightenment philosophers are sort of wrong in the sense that they sort of just assumed that if human beings were left alone in nature, they'd be completely alone in nature. They wouldn't come together with other humans. Like human beings, like it seems
there's
more.
This concept Jordan Peterson talks about of iterative games, or basically we're playing a game today, and that's us having our interaction. Then we have to play the game tomorrow of us having another interaction, and so on and so forth. And there has to be arbitrating something, language, systems, laws, principles, institutions, etc., to make that predictable enough for us not to all be constantly anxious and depressed and ready to kill everyone and in constant fight or flight mode. Yeah, just the economic data sort of highlights this fundamental truth you're getting at. When you go from 0 to 25% of the economy being spent by government, the trend is the more they spend, the more it helps. There's a point where it reflects back down, or turns back down. But anyways, without a military and courts and prisons and laws and property rights, you're never going to be able to build the Target that you want to build of tomorrow, or the Amazon, because someone can just come down from the street, shoot you, and say, "My Amazon now." in anarchy. Like there's nothing keeping people from doing that, which means no one can ever build anything. I have someone who I've talked to a few people from Nigeria and from Gambia and from that part of the world, and they talk about Nigeria, and that's what you have now is you have anarchy. There's you can't keep anything because if you have anything beyond the food you can eat today, it gets stolen by people that are
Yeah.
bigger and more violent than you. And
If
so
there were
we
no,
need these institutions to tame the worst side of men.
if there were no rules, the first thing I would do is say, okay, here are the rules. And if there are no rules, then how can anyone stop me?
Yeah, it's not
even a
it's the
fantasy.
corner of a room, and you can't get past it. Everything just is gone at that point. There's no more opportunity. All right, so and then anarcho-capitalism.
That one seems to make more sense as a
political philosophy.
Just as a concept. I don't agree with anarcho-capitalism, and like I said, I don't believe there's such a thing as anarchy for human beings. Like even like from our own nature, I don't think if there was one if it was like a I Am Legend scenario, where just one guy, that I believe is the closest thing to anarchy. But if it's like, and I mean the movie, not the book. They're apparently two completely different stories, which is exciting if I had the time. But what was it? Was I talking about again? But if what they're trying to get at, when people say an anarcho in front of something, it the semantics of the word means without authority. But what it seems like the people who are for those positions or use those terms, it seems to be that what they're getting at is without interference. So what they're technically referring to without interference from an arbitrary power structure, what they're getting to, anarcho-capitalism is basically just enlightenment liberalism with some more Ayn Rand latched onto that. Not American liberalism, because American liberalism is basically just communism, and it's annoying, because it's sort of like in the United States, Republicans, like from the sort of philosophical stuff, they're straight up liberals. Like that's what constitutional republicanism is. It's just Lockean philosophy.
Yeah. I think that's more or less why I consider myself a moderate and appeal to the 70-80% in the middle as I do. Because basically, like, a good economy, low crime, cheap cost of living, and then like basic freedoms, constitutional freedoms.
Yeah,
like we all basically are just like right there. Like most Americans are like right there. They just want that, and the rest is a function of understanding and needing to consult with experts that aren't lying to you or manipulating you. Even the things, even like the best of the best. In terms of sort of breaking molds of orthodox and bad thought, Thomas Sowell is one of the best in terms of having done that with his work, and he still has plenty of propaganda and limited perspective in what he puts into his content. It's still inside and nested within the broader game of crap, so to speak. And so very, very rough. Anarcho-capitalism as like without any authority, it can't function, but like a voluntary capitalist society where you try to take contracts and laws and money and all those kinds of things that are now sort of more technologically in people's hands. There's an opportunity to definitely make something really cool happen there in that space. But basically, I just see like us making government as minimal as possible and just the core like safety and law enforcement, contract enforcement, mechanisms and like, basic constitutional rights, and then the rest of it is just left up to people, because whether it's regulating a product, in that case, we should have a private standard like kosher or halal or whatever, just different types of standards that are private that monitor that, and then you could just have those competing and just have some sort of mandate that they have to do that. They have to have a third party. They have no personal tie in with that kind of thing. Those types of decentralized government policy models are a way out of the left-right binary between centralized authority and this sort of anarchist or free from coercion system.
Yeah.
If you keep the choice in the hands of the people, it's possible to do a lot of cool things. I think so. Anyways, so I think like the voluntary capitalism type of thing we're trying to get after is feasible, conceivably, but it would take. The only way it can work is literally a universal disarmament of government force, and that like
That'll never
literally
happen. The government
it
as an
literally can only
institution.
happen if everyone agrees at the same time to do it. And the second anyone starts to disagree, we have violence, and then we have to have that dispute, and then it gets sorted out. But I mean, if I don't know. Anyways,
The point of
that's
the
the only
point of
way
a
it can really
state,
happen.
the point of a state, any state, is to have a monopoly on force. Like that's the fundamentals of any like any
Peaceful society.
governments or any government system. It doesn't have to be peaceful. What separates these government systems is how they legitimize the power to use that force. Because if the power is legitimate, then however the state uses that power, if they use it in a just way, then it doesn't particularly matter what kind of system, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure, like, I don't believe this for a second, but if the United States became a monarchy, as long as we had our constitutional protections, and as long as because I don't like monarchy, because I'm very much in the sort of Lockean tradition. But if the U.S. became a monarchy, but we had a constitutional the same constitutional systems, the same separation of powers, we just didn't elect a president. We just had the sort of the veto power and the Marines and all that stuff that the president has, and just they gave that to a monarch instead of a president. I'm sure Americans would basically feel exactly the same.
Yeah.
If the government was doing the same thing to people as it's doing right now, I think regardless if we had a president every 4 years or if we had a monarch, people would feel exactly the same.
The only difference, and it's kind of an interesting one. I think if we have a good president versus any kind of a monarch, there's a big difference there. But a bad president and a monarch, there's not a big difference there. But I don't know where I was going with that. Anywho, mercantilism is the next thing we wanted to talk about, or I wanted to talk about with you. And so my sort of understanding and working definition is it's a mixture of corporate socialism, a little bit, like that doesn't have to be a part of it, but that can be a part of it depending on how totalitarian the system is. But basically it's just the idea from a business standpoint of being vertically integrated. You want to build and make as many of the things that you're going to consume yourself, and then focus on exporting it to other people and having that sort of one-way conception of trade where it's about getting the most for you and giving the least to somebody else. What do you think about that? And what do you think about that in terms of, is it a good or a bad thing for America to adopt that perspective?
Well, it just sounds sounds like I'll just give an example. Imagine if there was a meat processing plant, and the people who own the meat processing plant are like a family of 10, but it's a small meat processing plant. So they have to feed 10 people. That's about 3-4 cows a month, something like that. But the problem is this, because it's a small plant, they can only produce 10 cows. So they'll probably sell 1 cow to each family, but they'll give 3 cows to them. But they'll have 3 cows to to themselves. I I don't know. I guess the point I'm trying to make is I don't particularly um, care about concepts of who has too much and who has too little, because at the end of the day, the reason people participate in society is because whatever the society is that it's a preferable alternative. Now, thankfully, I live in the United States, so when I say that, I come across as someone who's pro liberty instead of anywhere else on the planet. If I said this, if I was native to any other country in the world, I'd sound like a complete statist. But I don't like when people say the divide between like the rich and the poor. Like that's like big city stuff. Everyone is miserable in these big cities. There's feces, heroin needles all over the place, and you'll have people in Lamborghinis drive by, several dozen homeless people on their way to Starbucks, and then a roving gang is going to loot to the local like Walmart or or whatever because you can't prosecute the fines and stuff like that. And then everyone's complaining about, oh, the rich and the poor, the rich and the poor. That's not why people are upset in these big cities. The reason why people are upset in these big cities, which is where the majority of just people in the Western world live, is what they're essentially getting at is I cannot have access to, I guess, to quote Thomas Jefferson, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. In the case of, in fact, it's actually completely anti-Lockean how these. It's actually more closer towards how Rousseau or Marx would run a state with these big cities compared to how, say, my district is in California is run. Like you could see this night. It's night and day. Over here, I have life, liberty, and property which is the actual Locke quote. And by that I mean if I rob a store, I'm gonna get arrested because what I did was someone labored to make that, and I just took it arbitrarily for my own greed, basically.
Mm-hmm. I did not produce or do something to give a fair trade for that.
And so it's just sort of like the whole and I guess to bring it back to mercantilism is that I wouldn't want to live in that kind of society because it seems that society is concerned and it's exactly what people like Ayn Rand are concerned with and Karl Marx. It's all sort of the same thing where the only part of the human experience that they're concerned with is just the material conditions of humans within a society. But the thing is, it's possible to be happy and be poor. I remember growing up, our internet bill would go down. There'd be something wrong with the air conditioning because the house that we were renting in was old. It's like I was, but because even though the house was, I guess, rather run down, and sometimes all of the sort of amenities within a house wouldn't always be in working order, I was still clothed, bathed, and I had three meals a day. I now know that eating 3 meals a day is actually terrible for you, and what you should have is a light breakfast and a really, really big dinner. But I digress. But it's just one of those things where it's like I was happy back then. Even though I had some family stuff going on, and that I had some emotional problems, and there were some problems with my material conditions. Overall, I was happy because I lived in a semi decent place with people that loved me, and I had friends, and I had people to make personal connections with, and stuff like that, and that part is equally important. Whereas a mercantilist society like wouldn't care if the people are happy. You know, a communist society wouldn't care if the people are happy or not, because each according to his ability, each according to his need, and you don't technically need to be happy. And then Ayn Rand would be like, well, no one's interfering with my, well, no one's and Ayn Rand and Rousseau would be like, there's no one interfering with my freedom of will or agency. There's no one interfering with my freedom of will. I can exercise my will wherever I want. If I'm not happy, then I just need to exercise my will more. It's like, okay, but what if you get no sunlight because your neighbors have just decided to use their will to buy 27 fog machines and turn them all on at once, and the wind was blowing over your house. There's like he's doing it on his own property. I mean, it's his freedom of will. You don't want to oppress him, do you? It's like, shut up. It's basically what it is.
Certain things fall so far below serious intrusions on freedom or your life that it's like, it's not the use of force, in the way that they describe it. Because like the use of force, for depending on what it's used for, is what determines whether or not it's morally viable. My gut check rule, and it's not an exact precise philosophy, but basically, if whatever you did is not as bad as stealing and or kidnapping, and the government finds you, steals your money, or arrests you, kidnaps you, they have done something worse than what you did in the first place, and therefore committed a greater moral sin than you did in the first place in that act. If whatever they do in response to you is the same or not as bad as what you did, then they're acting in a just way. So if you steal from a bunch of other people and then they garnish your wages or give you a fine or whatever to make sure it's paid back plus a little extra, that's fine. That's, tit for tat. If you're a assaultist or a rapist or anything like that, then we obviously have the right by force to take you down and put you away and put you somewhere where you have no chance of ever hurting anyone again. I would love a little patch of dirt with snipers around the perimeter and just let them fend for themselves. That's my for the rapists and the murderers and the the worst of the worst class, the pedophiles. That's my solution.
Wood chipper.
Wood
chipper. That's how you solve the. Okay, that's the final solution to the pedophile question.
The only issue with that is the false positive, issue.
Yeah.
Because then it's.
But
I'd rather let 49 pedophiles live in misery than kill one innocent man under that accusation. So I'm happy to take that line, but. Do they deserve to die? Of course. Of course. No question. That's not even up for debate. But yeah, with the mercantilist thing, I think it's all about sort of who you are on the global field. I think for us, in trading with other countries, we should do it in a more limited fashion, have our core industries protected. But basically, in trading with poorer countries, we get leverage over them and then can push them to increase their human rights and adopt our constitutional systems and values and try to bring them into that fold. Well, I don't think it's ever been applied in a sort of a economic sanctions apparatus. So like Saudi Arabia would not live up to our human rights standards and therefore be tariffed and sanctioned in the system and cut out of the Western alliance economically. Especially if we can produce our own oil and stuff like that, then we start to free up our dependence on all these things. And
we can. We're just refusing to for some reason.
Well, I mean, they've bought out our politicians, not just like one level at the top level, but like 18 levels down. Like we're deep into the game and we have not been playing. We're in the fourth quarter and we've been asleep the whole time, kind of a thing.
But we can still get a few home runs,
Yeah. Yeah, they're only up by two. Yeah. Anywho, so for us, having a core industry protectionism and then outside of that, playing the trade game makes a lot of sense. For countries like New Zealand or little ones, where they're going to have a limited amount of different industries they can even be active in, they should protect those and then They're going to have to import everything else. They can't make everything themselves. I don't like allowing China to do what they're doing because they're getting to play every single angle of the game. They do get a bunch of advantages by being a developing country. They then inflate their currency like a mother effer, which makes it cheaper constantly to hire their labor, artificially keeping their wages the cheapest in the world. Also, when you artificially deflate your currency instead of just printing more and more and more and then naturally letting what they do is like, imagine if the United States government would give you $1 for every 75 cents of pesos that you brought. You immediately make 33% on your money upon entry. That's what they're doing at their exchanges by offering it at sub real value prices to incentivize people to come in. Subsidizing various types of production to make their prices artificially low, and you could go on down the line. They literally every single knob they could turn in their favor they have, and so the whole world needs to be like, hang on a second, not cool, not fair for anyone, literally. And we can leverage Africa and the new free trade agreement in the African continent to try to combat this. So we're in a good position on that front. But we have the wrong people in office to get it done. But that's a side issue.
So you want an American alternative to Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, essentially?
Yeah, I absolutely want that. I want us to be trying to invest in other countries and bring up their human rights or their infrastructure and stuff like that, and try to develop those relationships as much as possible. We should be sending American workers to go build things overseas to help them get the infrastructure of their societies going. We shouldn't be giving away free aid with nothing in return.
We shouldn't even be
and screwed and in a corrupt society.
We shouldn't even be sending them the meat, sending I'll just use the word our. We shouldn't be using our builders over there. What we should do is take a bunch of veteran contractors for drywall and concrete, so veteran electricians, and we should just teach them to build things.
That'll be hire and train, but it would be better for us it would be better for us and get it done faster to have already trained American workers going over there to do that. It happens now within the United States in construction. People from California will go and do a project for a few months in Florida and then go over and do a project for a few months in Wisconsin while keeping their residence in California. So it's we should train them, but it's going to take time to train them. And if we wait for them to learn how to do all the stuff, it'll take longer than if we just start getting it done. So whenever you can game, set, go, the time is the essence. Time is of the essence with that kind of stuff. So, anywho, so we pretty much got through what I wanted to get through in the core bits and pieces of it. And so I'm going to open up the comments here. We only got one person watching right now, so we'll see if we get any questions.
Oh, wow, a bunch of people just joined when you said we only got one person.
No, that's over the course of the whole live. At the top there is the one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've had I guess eight people altogether circle through the thing. I'm gonna take a second and just share this with the few people that I see that are currently on, if they are here, and just see if they want to come on.
It's the Q&A section. So I guess while we're rating, to answer some of the stuff that was on the messages or whatever, you asked me what I thought about the Republican Party. I guess philosophically speaking, I would align with them, because it's just Lockean philosophy, and that's just the main thing. But I would definitely say none of the Republicans are very Lockean. And of the Republicans that I do like, I'm going to say Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I have a story as of why I like Marjorie Taylor Greene. And there's I'm just going to go by what I know is in office just off the top of my head. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Rand Paul. there are other people in the Republican Party that are elected in office that I like, but it's more so because they're sort of like they're I guess culture warriors, I guess is the term, but like they've been very consistent. Like there's a third one that I like, Lauren Boebert. She basically brought her, like I knew her because everyone was freaking out because she was exercising her constitutional right to a firearm, like while going into, like, her first day of serving the people, or whatever. And like she got really upset because she's from, I think, Wisconsin, or something, like one of those sort of belt weather states or whatever. So she's just used to, I can walk into a building with a gun and they'll probably like check it or whatever, but then they'll just give it right back to me. And so I'm just like, I like that, because once because like as soon as that happened, she kind of just realized like basically everyone is out to get her, and then she's been like very like culture warrior, kind of thing. I guess I like Ron DeSantis for the same thing, because what he does is he keeps just making very sensible legislation.
Yeah,
and then everybody just keeps freaking.
He's willing to fight. He's not
Mhm.
exclusively on the defensive like most conservatives are. He's actually
Yeah,
proactively trying to initiate change. And I believe a Navy SEAL. I know he's
yeah.
extremely smart and well educated and just a
Visit.
good
When he was
operator for sure. He knows what
when he
he's
was
doing.
in Congress in, I think, 2013, 2014. I covered this in a Trevor Report a long time ago. There was sort of an omnibus spending bill, and basically he put into the omnibus spending bill, and we recognize Israel as a country,
Hmm.
and everyone didn't like it. Everyone kind of got a little upset with that, because Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi want to keep bombing kids,
Well, they
basically.
want to keep getting paid to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't
So
think they
what?
specifically really care about the kids either way. If they didn't die, I don't
Yeah.
think they'd feel bad.
I just it just really rolls off the tongue saying, oh, they just want to bomb kids. It just rolls
It's
off the tongue. But
it's uh it's
but
the
I guess
truth.
with Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's,
Oh,
I guess,
Jim
kind of a.
Jordan. Jim Jordan's
J-
a good
yeah,
noteworthy
yeah.
guy. I'm not as big of a fan of Matt Gaetz. He seems a little bit like uh
Look, here's the thing. Matt
popular
Gaetz,
guy.
at the very least, he has the right instincts. But
He,
I
he
but I
he's
but I, but I do think that if this was 20 years ago,
he's a
he
MAGA
would just.
mask and an empty suit.
He's just. Yeah, he's a politician through and through.
He's a
So
MAGA
like,
politician. He's
but the
just going to
thing
tell us
but
what we want to
yeah,
hear, but he's going to vote our way.
yeah. And
And
I
he's
don't
like, he doesn't
particularly.
care.
Yeah.
He's
The
liking the
thing
fun
is,
and celebrity of it all.
his own constituents want him to vote that way.
Yeah,
Basically. So
he's
like
being a
that's, I guess, where.
representative. You know.
Yeah, that's where I guess it's fine. But with Marjorie
If you guys
Taylor,
have any questions, feel free.
hmm, with
It's all open.
yeah, with Rand Paul, he's basically, I know him, opposed the Federal Reserve, the Occupy Wall Street. That's how I know him. I've always liked Rand Paul, the Paul family, Rand and Ron Paul, you know.
Yeah.
But but Marjorie Taylor Greene is something, because I thought Congress voted.
The Republican women are kicking some ass right now. There's another
Yeah.
one that went and recorded the warehouse of baby formula being held for
Hmm.
illegals by our government.
I saw that.
and then,
Yeah.
and then she's like, "Yo, like,
She's like,
and that's all
I
you got to do.
I
Just
love it when
show how crazy
yeah,
this shit is."
because it's basically just a bunch of like soccer moms just like proving
Yeah,
themselves right.
I've been
It's
saying for
always,
12. I've been saying for 11 years now. The most competent and smartest people in politics are the everyday soccer moms that,
hmm
focus on their local elections and really, really are in the battle. But none of
yeah.
them, for some reason, ever want to just jump into the arena and actually run for office. I don't get that. But, anywho.
Yeah, the reason I like Marjorie Taylor Greene though is basically the story. She went on Tim Pool's podcast or whatever,
Hmm.
and she basically explained, and I think you might be familiar with this. She basically explained that when Congress votes on things, that it's 10 Democrats and 10 Republicans and some dude in the middle. They say yay or nay, and they say yay or nay very enthusiastically, and then they bang a gavel, and it either passes or fails. And then so that's not good. That's not how that's supposed to operate. So basically, but it's technically constitutional. But the thing is, Marjorie sort of found out that she could call like a special session or whatever, and it forces all the congressmen and women to come in and vote on that bill, yes or no. And it's sort of like, and it's because she did that. There was an sorry, not Islamophobia. There was a blasphemy law, an Islamic blasphemy law that was about to be passed, but she called a special session, and so it did, and so it was literally Congress was about to pass a law to respect an established religion.
Ridiculous.
And I'm just like, what the hell, you know? and so I was just kind of like, huh.
Yeah.
And
So
out of all of them, I really
so
like
you would
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
You would
You know?
assume our representatives should have to be there to vote on things before they become law. That's kind of the whole point. And yeah,
Yeah.
they don't have to. They can have proxies unless one of them says no proxies, basically. Then as soon as you say that, everyone has to show up to actually vote. And yeah,
If
she
they
did
ever,
that,
if
and it
they,
pissed
what is it?
everybody off. But I was like, that's
Yeah.
awesome. They
No,
should
but she
show
keeps
up.
she keeps she keeps doing this.
Yeah.
She calls a special session every single time. She doesn't even go to the bathroom until she's done working.
No,
It
yeah.
got to it got
She's
to
awesome.
it
I
got
saw her
to
on
it
Facebook,
gets
too.
it's gotten to a point where Nancy Pelosi has votes at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, or has votes when she's going back to her district, so that they could presumably pass blasphemy laws.
So they can get all the crap through. Yep.
And I'm just
Yep,
like,
that sounds about right.
wow. I'm just like, wow. And then they tried to get her, and then they tried to get her off the ballot. So like, I really respect Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's the only
Yeah.
politician that I respect. Like a lot of them, I like their policies or their personality. With Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's the only one where I could say it's like, no, this is political willpower.
Yeah.
Like this is every bit as important to her as like her own kids, and you could just tell.
Yeah. Yeah, well, because it is her own kid's future. Like
Mhm.
there is no escaping politics, and the more the government takes control of aspects of our lives, the more that will be true. But people think politics isn't related, but they just don't understand how it's related. Like when
Yeah.
you pay more for gas in California because of the
hmm
insanely high gas tax, that's politics in part.
On
Like
average, we
gas
pay a
prices
dollar
overall are
more than
politics.
everyone else. You know.
Wars, which it's funny. Have you watched The Office? Are you a fan of The Office?
I watched it. Yeah, I watched
There's a
all of it
scene. There's a
a few
scene with
times. You know.
what's her name? I can't remember. Anyways, there's a scene with this relatively like ditzy girl, and she's talking about like she doesn't know much about politics, and she has her in-laws that talk about politics, and she's like, I wouldn't know what to say. She's like, what tax should we have, and what is the best war to do, and stuff. And it was just a funny way of phrasing, like, what is the best war to do? But I don't know. Anyways, it's a dope show. It'd be worth watching. It's
Yeah,
very.
I've seen it a few times, like I said.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Alrighty, man. Well, we haven't gotten any questions, and we got through what we had to. So I think we'll wrap it up here.
Yeah, sure.
This is
Sounds
another
great.
episode of the Uncommon Conversations podcast.
Mm.
This is Trevor Brown. We do the American Gracchus podcast, right?
Let me do it. American Caracus podcast.
Yep. Once a week, and it's high-level conversations. We go over 3 major events and/or topics in each one of those. It's only on the Acropolis News Network's premium page, I guess, or whatever, premium subscription. And yeah, there's a lot more to come. Anything you want to plug, my friend?
Yeah, I would just like to plug my socials. You can go to basically any Liberty platform over on, and just go over to this just Trevor, Rumble, Minds, Odyssey, BitChute, Getter, Gab. I don't remember if I said Minds or not. You can also check out any of the Acropolis News Network channels. Acropolis News over on Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch, Trovo. Acropolis News Network over on Twitch, and Acropolis News over on Trovo. You can also watch our live streams on the website, and basically any live stream platform you want. All our live events go basically everywhere. Decentralize your social media presence.